G'day everyone, it is Coach Michelle J. Raymond here. And listeners, I think this episode is going to be my favorite episode of the year. Why? Because this has been on my bucket list for a couple of years to speak to this person, the OG of content marketing, Anne Handley. Welcome to the show.
So delighted to be joining you this afternoon in Boston, where it's rainy and freezing cold, and at least I'm here with you getting a little bit of warmth via Australia.
You can have some of mine. It's well over the 100 degrees Fahrenheit here already at 7:30 in the morning. So
Yeesh.
I am very, happy to share. It'll be my Thanksgiving gift to you because I know that it's that time of year as this goes live. And you are the GOAT when it comes to content marketing as far as I'm concerned. And I came across you by accident 2 years ago, roughly, when I was researching female marketing quotes on Google, and you were the only female marketer that had quotes that came up, not even telling you a lie on this. And I was like, why is this person standing out? And obviously I went down that rabbit hole and had the pleasure of meeting you at Social Media Marketing World and watching you speak. So that's how we ended up here. If you've listened to my podcast, you know that Metricool is my go-to social media management platform. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome, and let me introduce you to this fabulous tool. Metricool has plans to suit everybody, including a completely free plan that you can manage one brand across social channels, analyze your results, and plan your content accordingly. But today, I want to talk about the tiered premium plans, and they are tailored toward businesses and creator goals at a reasonable price. Some of the amazing premium features that are available across the plans are the fact that Metricool makes managing multiple brands simple. It's all in one place. But my favorite part is that you can connect multiple LinkedIn accounts that are both personal or company pages. You can also analyze up to 100 competitors to benchmark your performance. And a recent new release, which is making a big difference, is that you can connect your Google Drive and Canva and really streamline your content planning. Downloadable analytics reports that you can automate monthly make life easy, and there is just so much more. So if you are looking to organize your social media content, make more informed marketing decisions, and scale your online presence, well, Metricool is a must. But don't just take my word for it. Give it a go for yourself and see how Metricool can make your life easier. Listeners, I've got a special offer just for you. Go to the show notes, look for the link to create a free account today, and then you can use the code Michelle30 to try any premium plan for free for the next 30 days. And you can thank me later. Today, I want to talk to you about, can we work together in today's show to get rid of average content and get our marketers saying hello to spectacular content? Can we make that happen today?
We can absolutely make that happen today.
And why does most B2B content feel average at best?
Oh my goodness. I thought we were going to start with an easy question. Why does most B2B marketing content feel average? Listen, there's never been a marketer who, when they were a child, snuggled into their twin bed at their house. They never thought, oh, I cannot wait to grow up and create mediocre content. I cannot wait to do that. That is my life's mission. Of course not. Nobody wants to show up at work and produce stuff that's average at best, right? But yet, that's the reality. That's what we live with. And don't take my word for it, even though I am apparently the only woman who comes up on Google for marketing expert quotes. Our recent research that Marketing Profs did with the Content Marketing Institute, and I know you had Robert Rose on not that long ago, but we found that, I made this chart, we found that, here we go, getting the whole thing in there. We found that 58% of B2B marketers rate their content strategy as moderately effective. And so the extremely effective, this little sliver up here, this little 3%, the purple, that is extremely effective. And that's just sad. And even the very effective is not that great. It's the 26% there. So this is what we need to deal with. Why is it moderately effective? And so I think the numbers tell the story of what's actually going on, but yet when we asked marketers, why is it moderately effective or worse? Like when we drill down into that area, 42% of B2B marketers said that a lack of clear goals is the reason why they didn't rate their content strategy higher. Now, that lack of clear goals is not coming from marketers. In fact, very often it's coming in response to shifting leadership priorities, or because this is marketing and the average CMO tenure is like, what, 10 minutes? Something like that. It's very short.
Time for a rebrand.
Time for a rebrand. Let's kick out the CMO. Shifting leadership priorities, sometimes shifting leadership, lack of budget to develop content. That means often like too many cooks in the kitchen, too many people. And listen, Michelle, we've all experienced this, that everybody thinks that they can do the job of the marketer. I have never thought that I could do the job of the CFO. That would never be on my radar. But yet, in a lot of organizations, the CFO thinks they can do the job of the marketer, of the CMO. Everybody thinks they know how to do marketing. And so I think those are just some reasons why we are stuck in this sort of, 58% of averageness down here. It's not exactly our fault. I think it's just part of what we're dealing with as companies, as people working within these companies. It's just a very challenging environment that we're dealing with. There are some other reasons why, like too many diverse business units. Some folks said sometimes people talked about competing brands and products and the sort of just where do you focus, where do you go? But I think to me, it all points to the two main things of shifting leadership priorities or shifting leadership, and then the lack of budget and too many cooks in the kitchen.
Couldn't agree more. And I also look at it from the perspective of a lot of the marketers that I talk to, they are the marketing team. It's one person, maybe two people at best, and they're meant to be experts against writing blogs, SEO, LinkedIn, TikTok, every other social media platform that you can imagine under the sun, writing emails, newsletters, you name it. And by the way, you've got to do it all yourself, and we're not giving you the resources you need to be able to do it. But I think that is a real struggle for marketers out there who want to do a great job. I absolutely agree with you. And so that's why I wanted to do today's episode with you, Anne, because I want to move into, okay, that's where we're at. But I know with some of your expertise and tips that we can get people more towards that spectacular, move them up into that top 3% where they can go home every day and go, yes, I'm rocking this. I am nailing it. I am happy with what I'm putting out there. So let's move into the part where people are listening to this and there's B2B marketers that are ready to say goodbye to the average and move into spectacular. But it's time to do a content review first. I think we should start with what are they doing now? What kinds of things do you think that they should be looking for that kind of would be a standout that says that's average?
Yeah, right. I mean, I think in B2B marketing, we often hear you have to know your audience, right? I think what you need to understand who your audience is. And while that is technically true, of course, and it's also kind of obvious, I think that we tend to get a little bit muddled in execution. Like, how do we actually get to know them? And so one of the things that I like to talk about is not just looking at who your audience is from a geographic or a demographic standpoint, but also and also a psychographic standpoint, but also identifying how they are using your products and services, like truly understanding how they use and why they use your products and your services, figure out the actual benefits that they get from it, the frustrations maybe that they get from it, sometimes how it makes them feel, and start your content strategy there. Like really hone in on what are all the reasons why, or all the problems that we solve, and how do our customers connect with those problems? What problems aren't we seeing out there that maybe that we can solve for them additionally? So really hone in on that. So not just really understanding at kind of a general level who our audience is, but really drilling into who these people are, how we make them feel, how we can help them even further. I think all of those areas are so important for us in B2B marketing to understand, but also it's a great place to look for content ideas, for thinking about what can we create in response to that joy, that pain, all of the ways that we fit into their lives.
I often look at this and think it's going back to the fundamentals of marketing,
Yeah.
which every marketer out there has probably studied for years and years and got out into the real world. And then people were throwing stuff at them left, right, and center, going, just get it out. And it's done, but done to the level where it's like, okay. And so for me, it's about, yeah, like you said, going back to those basics and understand who are we doing this for. One other tip that I would give people in the review stage is have a look and see, have you accidentally morphed into your competitors? And I see this quite often where people start off with doing some research on what their competitors are doing. And I focus on LinkedIn company pages with this. And then all of a sudden what happens is the page that's got the biggest followers, they must be the best at what they do. So people subconsciously, I think a lot of the time, start to copy or be inspired by, is I think the cool kids term for it these days. But they start to accidentally morph into their competitors, and then they lose that piece where they're now different and everything looks the same. So that would be my one little tip that I would add on to what Anne shared there, because I think when you have a look, it's best intentions, competitor research can come unstuck so quickly when we're time poor and we don't have those strategies and goals like you mentioned.
What you're saying dovetails really nicely with the research that we did as well, because the number 2 content creation challenge for B2B marketers is differentiating our content precisely what you're saying. We sound just like everybody else. And I think that's something that's always been a struggle in B2B marketing. I think it's even more acute on social media when it's so clear sort of how people are communicating. There's a trend now where, we've got to, post on social media in all lowercase so Gen Z likes us. And it's like, that's okay. Like, in a way, it's fine, but it's also really not you. If that's not your brand, if that's not your personality, then it's, you don't need to do that just so you can sound like everybody else.
Yeah, it's kind of funny what becomes on trend versus way off brand, and there's a fine line that I know people are trying to juggle. Now, I was trying to narrow down the billions of questions that I wanted to ask you for this podcast, and I was doing my research on your website, and one of your keynotes talks about spectacular content. And I was like, yes, spectacular content. But what makes spectacular content in your eyes?
That's such a good question. There's not one thing that, I can't give you a Mad Libs prescription and say, here, just do this with this amount of emotion and it'll produce spectacular results. It's not quite that simple. I wish it was. But in my mind, the best content, the most spectacular content, makes people feel something about your brand. It makes people feel something about the people who work at your brand. I will tend to open up something in my email when it's from a brand that I feel something for. And it's such an easy thing to say, but in a lot of ways, it's really hard to create that sort of emotional connection, especially in the B2B space. But I think it's so critical. And when I look across everything that I love, all the content programs out there that I love, they have always made me feel something. Sometimes it's outrage, sometimes it's made me laugh, sometimes it's just made me feel seen. I feel like they understand my problems. And so all of those things, I think, make me connect to a brand. And that's really what starts to build that emotional connection with a brand. And you're well on your way to creating some kind of spectacular content at that point. And look, it's really hard to write a spectacular blog post, right? It's not about just one and done. Instead, it's an iterative approach. It's over time where you're showing up on social media or how you're showing up on social media is very much reflective of who you are in your website. And it's very much reflective of what your email newsletter tone of voice sounds like. It's all part of the same continuum. Yes, it's about emotion, but it's also about thinking through all of those opportunities that you have to connect with an audience. And that's so critical here in 2024, heading into 2025 in just a few short weeks. Because unlike a few years ago, where it felt like that customer journey was a very straightforward thing, right? Where somebody would say, download a guide or read a blog post and then sign up for your email newsletter. And then they get the thing, the guide, the email newsletter, and they're like, oh my God, I love this. I want more of this. I got to hear from these people. And then next step is like, cha-ching, like they're going to buy, or they're going to reach out for a demo. And it doesn't work that way anymore. It's not a straight line. It's not a straight path. Now it's kind of like a crime scene murder board where there's like
got the string out.
Yeah, there's all these things going on. It's like Carrie Matheson in Homeland trying to like talking to Saul, trying to figure it out. It's impossible. In some ways, that's really crazy. Like it's very difficult. But on the other hand, I think that the imperative becomes making sure that you're showing up along the way with the same tone of voice. In other words, making it clear that this could only come from us and this is absolutely us. Yeah, it's a little bit disheartening, but I also think that there's an opportunity there to align all of your content assets to make sure that that crazy journey, while you may not be able to track it as neatly as we were once able to, but you can still, from your customers' standpoint, they can still recognize where they are and that you are you.
If you've ever followed along the work that the team at Dream Data do, they do a lot of that tracking and the digital tracking in the background. And they show exactly how messy this is. Clicked on a website, then went back to social, spoke to someone here, downloaded something. And then the average B2B sales cycle for them that they found in their research was something, it's almost 18 months at the end of the day. And so there's lots of different touch points all over the place that people are at. And there's something that you do, which I think is part of your magic that I think other people struggle with. When I read your content, whether it's your fabulous newsletter or your LinkedIn posts, I feel like I know you and that we're almost like we're friends, but at the same time, you're not an oversharer and there's kind of like a distance as well. Like you're still the professional, you're still the expert. Is that something you do deliberately, and can brands do something similar, or is it more individuals that we can connect with on that personal level? Because I think that's part of the appeal. I'm like, I know about your dog. I know that you work in your little office. Like, I know things that you do, but at the same time, it's like this kind of semi-distance. It's like, no, it's not my personal life, but here's the stories that are part of my world. I'd just like to learn a bit more about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's see. So I guess to answer the second part of that, is it deliberate? Yes, it is very much deliberate. I think that there's a major difference between being personable on LinkedIn and being personal on LinkedIn. Personable is knowing that I'm working in my tiny house studio right now. It's knowing that my dog Augie is right here. It's knowing that I am excellent with Sharpies. How excellent, you might wonder? That I was able to do this.
Oh, I love Michelle. Oh my God.
Yeah,
No, the show's done. We can stop here.
We're done.
Like, sorry, marketers, my moment has just been made.
I feel like you need this can be your new LinkedIn profile.
That's my banner. That's my new banner that's coming up. So for those of you who'll be listening to this later, Anne is holding up a sign that says, I heart Michelle. My work here is done. I'm sidetracked. Forget it. It's game over, Anne.
Oh my goodness.
Wait. Yeah. Personal versus personable.
Yeah, so I'm excellent with Sharpies. It's not calculated as much as it is what I'm comfortable with. And I know where that boundary is for me. And I think that everybody needs to make their own call on, what they're comfortable with. For some people, it may be a little bit further than it is for me. In my mind, I don't think people really care about, my personal life. But I think that me as a personable person, I think that's imperative. I think we all need to be that way in modern marketing. It's funny, though, just like as a quick aside, I feel like that line has gotten very blurry between the personal and the personable. On LinkedIn specifically, 10 years ago, LinkedIn never felt like a dating site. But sometimes it is. And sometimes there's I look at it and I'm thinking, wait, did I accidentally wander into Facebook? Like, what? Yeah. What is going on here? So I think we see some of that. And that's because everybody makes their own choice about where that line between the personable and the personal is for them. But for me, it's definitely more in the, is this something my audience can relate to? Is this something that I want to share in a way that I feel will connect with those around me? And that's just, very simply how I make those calls. I want to show up in a way that feels unique and different. When you read one of my posts on LinkedIn, if you didn't notice that I was the one who wrote it, if you were to cover up my face and you didn't see the attribution, could you tell it was from me? My hope would be yes, because of the way that I write it. And so I think coming up with your own voice, your way of communicating is so critical on not just on LinkedIn, but throughout marketing, but especially on social media, where your face is literally attached to what you're posting and what's going on. And so can others replicate that? I think was your question. And yes, absolutely. You 100% should. And again, the line is going to be different for you, but I think always think about in service to your audience, which is always in the back of my brain. When I write anything, I workshop it. I don't just throw a post up there like I know some people do. I don't, because I don't want to waste people's time. I want to make sure that what I offer has value. I don't want to just share because it feeds my ego or it makes me feel good. I want it to have some relevance and something that will resonate with the audience. And so why do I care about that? Because I care about the audience and serving them, but I also care about growing as a professional, growing my profile as a thought leader. Growing marketing props is always a hard one to
No one thought that one through, did they?
Marketing process. No, you can't even imagine the conversations we have internally. I will spare you. Marketing process profile. There we go. Got it out. So I want to do all of those things. And so for me, the way to do that, and I think that what's true for anybody, is to think about how can I be inherently personable without being personal? Because again, this isn't Facebook. So yeah, in terms of brands though, and maybe you have a different perspective on this, Michelle. So respectfully, you and I should talk about this because I think it's a really good conversation to have. But I am not so convinced that brands can do it as easily as the thought leaders, the founders, the subject matter experts, the person who works in marketing who happens to be really good on camera, or the person who works in marketing who is a very good writer. I think all of those kinds of demonstrations of brand personability are so critical. I have a harder time when it's just the brand itself. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be done, but in my mind, when I think about a brand that I love on social media, I think about the people and I see their faces. I don't see the logo. Do you know what I mean? So just to give you a really quick example. So ClickUp here on LinkedIn. I don't know if you're familiar with their work, but you are. Yes. They do an incredible job. They're amazing on their LinkedIn video is funny. It's relatable. It's personable. It's just really, and you can tell that they have developed it with their personas in mind, that they're very much looking to connect emotionally with an audience. They're also on TikTok as well as some other social platforms, but to focus specifically on LinkedIn, because that's where we are. That's what we're talking about. I think they do a tremendous job with it. When I think about ClickUp's social strategy, I think about their guy, Luke, who is the front man for a lot of their video. And I think of their founder. It's like, I think of those two people. I think you've got to involve your people, and it can't just be leaving it up to them and say, yeah, go out there and be social and post here. Here's some pre-written posts that we've created for you. Just go out and amplify them. I think you've got to involve them at a much more significant and important way.
Yeah, look, no arguments from me. It is definitely harder, and I don't think a lot of people or a lot of brands put that much effort into upfront planning before they start just posting. And so, I talk about page advocacy. How can the brand lift up those employees? And, just a simple change can be say no to stock photos. For the love of whatever you believe in, please, no more stock images. You have a team full of people. The difference you can make with having exactly the same copy that just has a photo of your people instead of a stock image, it will be a scroll stopper in a heartbeat, because we want to be connected. We want to know who's behind the scenes. And so this is the thing that I would say to people is take the best of what works personally and bring it over onto the brand. And use it as a tool to say, hey, these are the people behind what you're going to end up buying. And these are the experts. Position them as those thought leaders. Back it up. Nothing says real thought leader than when your brand actually stands there and goes, yeah, this person's the real deal, rolling out the red carpet, putting them on a pedestal and saying, yes, this is the person that's the expert in our business. They feel 10 foot tall. Your brand then goes, oh, hang on a minute. Now everyone sees the brand positively because, hey, you respect the people that work there, and you'll attract even better talent because there's lots of different ways that content's used for brands. Some of it is, yes, about, I guess, selling. That is part of it. But there's another part of how do you get the best of the best to come and work for you? And so there's a couple of different balances that we've got in there. I think there's like something that when I'm working with clients, they feel like they're coming up against a brick wall, and maybe we can jump over it, go around it, underneath it, break straight through it. But we talk so easily about being unique and having your own tone of voice and your own perspective with your content. And, often people say, it's easy for you, Michelle. It's just your business. You can do whatever you want. But we're part of a bigger organization. And it feels scary to be different. What can you give to the marketers that might be listening going, yeah, I want to be different with the brand, but my leaders in the business, they're not entirely convinced that this is a great idea by being different. How can we give them some advice that would help them to try these new things and get it across the line internally?
You mean in terms of tone of voice or in terms of anything?
Just trying something different. It could be tone of voice, it could be the style of content, it could be the language that they use, but just trying something that goes beyond average and into that spectacular content category.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this has been a problem in content marketing since, oh my gosh, since probably my first book and maybe even before that. So that would be like 2010. That's how insane it is and how long this has been going on. So yeah, I mean, I think getting executive buy-in for anything that is outside the norm is going to be difficult. But to find that champion in the C-suite or to find that champion internally who will help you get this over the finish line, I think you've just got to frame it in terms of what is this going to do for the business? Very simply, if we show up this way, what could it do for us? What is the potential of maybe not being differentiated? 42% of marketers are having trouble creating differentiated content, right? So what is the opportunity there? And what is the opportunity we lose if we don't experiment and try something? I'm pretty sure that, the ClickUp executive team weren't sitting around thinking this feels risky to, to start a TikTok and to port some of those videos over to LinkedIn. I think it's always about experimenting and iterating. And that's what makes marketing wonderful, isn't it? I mean, it's a differentiator from anything else at the C-suite level. It's a differentiator from operations and from finance because it is an area where we can experiment and try new things. And so I think it's just important for you to frame it in terms of what the opportunity is for the business based on what are your goals for an upcoming year, what are you trying to accomplish, and then show how content can help advance those goals. It's hard, but it's also simple at the same time.
Yeah. If in doubt, just look at what everyone else is doing and maybe go the opposite. Zig when they zag or be contrarian. Like just try it. One post will not kill your brand. I think the experimenting is the part that I hope as listeners join us in this conversation. That's the part that I want them to think about. What could we try that we haven't tried before? And just see what lands or what doesn't land. Because the fact is you'll never know unless you try.
Sorry. I got excited.
No, it's okay. Go for it. Go for it.
Sorry, Michelle. I already confessed this, so you have to give me a little leeway.
The I love Michelle sign is back up again.
Every time I start talking over you, but you know where my heart is.
You win.
What I was going to say is I had a conversation with Chris Savage at Wistia not too long ago. And Wistia does a lot of great things with their marketing. But one of the things he told me is that they do a lot of small experiments, tiny experiments to see what will start to get traction and what will resonate. And then they take that they figure out like ahead of time, without putting a lot of budget towards something, what will work, and then they amplify it from there. So I think, don't commit a ton of budget to something. Don't commit $100,000 to producing a video that you're not sure will work, like obviously, but I think just try some tiny experiments and see what will potentially pop. I have been in marketing forever, right? It's for a very long time. And even I have a really hard time predicting exactly what will pop because you don't know until you try. Like you just said, audiences are always shifting. Expectations are shifting. Culture shifts. And so what people will grab onto, what will touch them is going to be a little bit different every single time. And again, that's what I love about it. That's the opportunity. It can be a challenge, but I think it's one that's worth taking.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you know that I could talk to you all day, and I promised you that I would try and keep this thing on time, which I'm almost there. But I have one last question for you. If we're looking into content marketing for 2025, what do you want to see more of, and what would you like to see less of?
That's great. I would like to see, well, it's a little bit of a different answer, I guess. I want to see more women step on stages. I think there are a lot of incredibly talented and just women who blow me away in marketing. And I want to see more of that. I've been to lots of events recently where I've seen the next generation of marketers and women stepping onto stages, sharing their voice, sharing their stories. And I cannot tell you like how it does my heart good. Like I want to see more and more of that because like it's about time. It's so funny to me that you started our conversation about how you stumbled into me. Like that should not be happening. And God, I hope that doesn't happen anymore, and especially not in 2025 and beyond. So yeah, raising up women, encouraging them to step on stages, it is just so important. So that's the first thing I would say. Less of, what do I want to see less of? I think a lot of things we talked about already. I think we want to see the end of, I want this chart to look very different next year. And now that, here we go. I want this chart to look very different next year. I want to see this 58%. I don't want it to be that big. I want it to swap places with the extremely and the very. I want it to be just a whole different chart. So my hope is that we just accomplished that in the past, 25, 30 minutes together.
I hope so. And do you realize, listeners, that we've just spoken to Anne Handley for 30 odd minutes, and the words AI have not come up once about what you need to improve your content. So I think there's something in that. If you have been paying attention the whole way through, I think there are so many cool things that have been shared today about getting back to that strategy, getting back to being in service of your ideal customer, getting back involved in what is that actual buyer's journey, that messy buyer's journey that Anne shared about, and having a look at going, how can we bring emotions into our content? And all of this you can do with pretty much zero budget. So there really is no excuses for making this happen. This is a mind shift change, I think, more than anything, about going back and saying, we want to make spectacular content, and maybe we drop how much content we're making and improve that quality and drop the quantity and stop trying to be everywhere and keeping up with everything. I think it's impossible, and marketers out there are burning out. I read a stat that really blew me away that said content marketers are spending almost 33 hours creating content a week. And I was thinking, that's without having meetings, that's without having lunches, lives, all the other strategy type stuff. That's why we can't get back to this spectacular content. So we need to have a look at the basics and make time for this. And maybe that time comes from not creating as much average content and saying hello to spectacular content. And I'm going to wrap it up. Is there anything else, one last final tip that you want to share with people, and just to inspire them for 2025?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the only other thing I would say is, don't fall for hacks. Don't fall for shortcuts. There is no shortcut. Customer relationships take time, and that's just part of the journey. That's what we signed up for. Michelle, you're delightful. Thank you so much for having me.
Can you hold the sign up one more time? Just, Yeah, thank you. That's gonna be the screenshot. Like that's gonna be everywhere. So stay tuned, listeners. You will, if you're following my content, you're gonna see Anne Handley tagged a billion times over the next year
I
using
love
it.
it. That's
And
so
this
fantastic.
conversation definitely is everything that I hoped it would be. I appreciate
Oh,
you
thank
giving
you.
up your precious time. Thank you for being that person that inspires people like me to be on those stages and be better at the craft and share our
Yes.
messages, because
Yes.
you're right, there is not a lot of people out there that are leading the way. So thank you for being that person. Thank you for everything
Oh,
you do
thank
to
you.
give back to other people and support them. I appreciate you, and happy Thanksgiving to you.
Yes. Yes. All right. We'll talk soon.
All right, until next week, listeners.